one of two students who's part of the senior band.
I absolutely love him. He's also quite a character as well. Very funny, obviously. I think
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. President Donald Trump reiterating that he wants Canada to become the 51st U.S. state, as Canadian Prime Minister tells him that is not on the table. What the two leaders are discussing, and also what President Trump announces on U.S. actions against the Houthis. And we'll be speaking to an immigration expert for his take on the Trump administration's latest initiative to pay illegal immigrants $1,000 to self-deport. With student loan defaults on the rise, the Trump administration is urging colleges to act or risk losing federal aid. A formality turns into shock defeat. Germany's conservative leader is elected chancellor, but not before failing to garner enough support from his new coalition government in a first round of voting. And Russia and Ukraine swap hundreds of prisoners of war, but fighting continues with just days to go before Moscow wants to start a 3-day ceasefire.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Administration move on immigration hits a legal roadblock. A federal appeals court yesterday rejected the government's effort to revoke temporary legal status for hundreds of thousands of Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans living in the U.S. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that, plus updates on a key abortion pill case, as well as a lawsuit over a freeze on wind energy projects.
The Boston-based appeals court declined to pause a judge's order that blocked the Department of Homeland Security from ending a 2-year parole program. It was originally granted under former President Biden. The program allowed more than 530,000 people from the 4 countries to come to the United States from October 2022. They had to have sponsors and were given 2-year permits to live and work in the U.S. The administration argued that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem had the authority to end the program, calling the judge's order an overreach that forced the government to retain illegal immigrants against its will. But the 3-judge panel said Noem hadn't shown her action would likely hold up on appeal. Turning to abortion, the Trump administration on Monday asked a judge to toss out a lawsuit regarding abortion pills from 3 GOP-led states. The Department of Justice argued Idaho, Kansas, and Missouri lack standing to sue the FDA over its abortion pill policy. The states want stricter rules and filed the case in Texas, but the DOJ says the case doesn't belong there and is time-barred. The DOJ did not address the merits of the case. Trump told Time magazine in December he would not restrict access to abortion pills. In more legal news, 19 states, led by New York, are suing the Department of Health and Human Services.
Today, I am announcing a lawsuit to stop the most sweeping and unlawful assault on public health in our nation's history.
The states say recent mass layoffs and restructuring violate federal law and disrupt vital programs.
This administration is taking a wrecking ball to the Department of Health and Human Services.
HHS says all changes follow legal and personnel guidelines. New York and its Attorney General also lead a coalition of 18 Democratic-led states that filed a suit on Monday over wind energy. They are challenging President Trump's nationwide suspension of wind energy project approvals, calling the move an unlawful and politically motivated blockade that threatens job growth, energy security, and what they call climate progress. The lawsuit targets a directive issued by Trump on his first day back in office that suspended all new offshore wind leasing on the outer continental shelf and froze related permitting actions. Trump's directive cites a range of concerns, including potential impacts on marine ecosystems, navigational safety, and national defense operations. Trump also criticized wind turbines for being manufactured in China, harming bird populations and spoiling scenic landscapes. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
President Trump today is hosting Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney at the White House, the two touting friendship while also exchanging differing opinions on both trade and territory. And joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent, Iris. Hi, what came of this meeting at the Oval Office just now?
Good afternoon to you as well, Fiona. So it was a rather friendly meeting inside the Oval Office, even President Trump says is different than the one he had with Ukrainian Prime Minister Volodymyr Zelensky, where it got really fiery. While it's friendly, though, the two leaders still had explicitly differing opinions on both trade as well as whether Canada should become the 51st state of the United States. While Mark Carney won the latest Canadian election largely on a platform of fighting back against Trump, President Trump did praise him today, praising both his leadership and debate performance, also taking credit for his recent election win. Trump also says that no matter what happens, quote, we're going to be friends with Canada. But the two also talked about the elephant in the room, which is Trump also again reiterating that he does want Canada to become the 51st state of the U.S., as he says it's going to be beneficial for both the U.S. and Canada and lower taxes for Canadians. But Mark Carney pushed back, saying that it's not for sale. His country is not going to be for sale, and it's never going to change much.
I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things.
It's not for sale, won't be for sale ever, but the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together.
But never say never. Never say never.
Well, respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state.
And President Trump also repeatedly questioned why the U.S. is, quote, subsidizing Canada, emphasizing that the U.S. does not need resources from Canada such as lumber or energy. But Carney saying that Canada is actually the biggest client of the U.S., also emphasizing the importance of the auto industry that relies on both countries. Watch.
We don't do much business with Canada from our standpoint. They do a lot of business with us.
So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American.
Meanwhile, President Trump, toward the end of that open press Oval Office meeting, says that there's nothing Carney can do to change his mind on his tariffs on Canada. We know that while most of the goods under USMCA are exempt from Trump's new tariffs on Canada, those that are not covered by the trade deal are still subject to tariffs. And also we know that there's tariffs on steel and aluminum as well as auto parts between the two countries. While him saying that, it remains to be seen, though, if things could change after the two met further after the open press section of the meeting. So we are right now waiting for Prime Minister Carney to leave the White House, and he will hold another press availability later this afternoon. Meanwhile, during the meeting, President Trump also announced a new change when it comes to U.S. military action on Houthis in Yemen. He says that the U.S. will stop striking Houthis in Yemen, as the group has announced that, has told the U.S. that it's going to stop striking and attacking ships in the Middle East. And President Trump saying that is a big breakthrough, adding that the Houthis have, quote, capitulated. More importantly, we will take their own word. Back to you.
Iris, what did the president have to say about trade talks with other countries?
Right, so as trade negotiations are still ongoing, President Trump says that the U.S. can sign deals with 25 different trading partners right now, but he also emphasizes that the bigger issue here is that he wants to set clear expectations for trade, including pricing. Meanwhile, on China, President Trump said today that China wants to make a deal with the U.S. and the two will talk at the right time, but he also asked that China's economy is suffering greatly because of his 145% tariffs on Chinese goods. Watch.
They want to meet, and they're doing no business right now. Their economy is suffering greatly because they're not doing trade with the U.S. And they made most of their money off the U.S. Don't kid yourself. They don't make the money off other countries like this.
And earlier today, Secretary of Treasury Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent told lawmakers that the U.S. is engaging with countries on trade talks, and trade deals could be announced as early as this week. He also told lawmakers, though, that China is not currently part of any trade talks with the U.S. Back to you.
All right, exciting stuff, and we're going to wait and see what Prime Minister Carney has to say later. Iris, keep us updated. Thank you. All right, and let's stay on this meeting in the Oval Office we just saw from President Trump and Prime Minister Carney. Let's bring on now Mike Leon, our NTD News contributor and host of the podcast, Can We Please Talk? Mike, good to see you.
Good to see you, Fiona.
All right, big picture here. What's really at stake in this meeting today? Trump was quite frank in the Oval Office this morning.
Yeah, maybe too frank, Fiona, to be honest with you. I mean, you saw some facial features there and expressions from Mark Carney when it came to trade deficit. Look, I've been very vocal about this. Tariffs are a strategy that the president has used in the 1.0. Biden kept on some of the tariffs for some of the countries. He's trying it again in 2.0. He feels at the core of this, we're losing out in certain sectors that we've always exported to other countries. Any economist will tell you, yes, but that's called a trade, right? Because they can make it for cheaper and better. And Canada resides on this continent in North America. They're one of our biggest trade partners. We rely on them not only a lot for energy, but a lot of our auto manufacturing industry is based with respect to parts in Canada. And you heard the Prime Minister say that as well. I just feel like he's going at it the wrong way with respect to one of our closest allies and with respect to somebody that we do so much trade with, which we may force them into the arms of somebody else. Look, Fiona, I've talked with a lot of small business owners, obviously about the secondary impact of tariffs. We know that with respect to travel, leisure, and hospitality. But the direct impact of tariffs right now are coming home to roost for people, and they need to figure out something else. And that something else could start pushing people into the arms of other countries and other partnerships, as opposed to making it here in America, which the president wants to do from the incentive perspective. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. We're going to be continuing analyzing this almost daily, but really we won't know the effects for at least 4, 5, 6 months, because this is our biggest trade partner, and this is our biggest partner that's on this continent with us that we've been going to, let's be honest, war with. And he set up the USMCA agreement back in 2020, which was supposed to rectify NAFTA and be in the president's vision of a stronger, unified North America on a trade front. And he's kind of disintegrated all of that with not only some of his words today in the Oval Office, in my opinion, but some of his actions as well.
Well, obviously, to a lot of parties, they all hope that the U.S. and Canada maintains this very close and, frankly, quite special relationship. But how much room does Carney exactly have here to push back in these behind closed-door conversations? Because 75% of Canadian exports, they do go to the U.S. every year. President Trump today, we heard him outright say he didn't want Canadian steel or car parts.
Yeah, see, and therein lies the factor. And what I was talking about with the negotiation ploy, right, Fiona, is what you just said. Canada knows 75 is a very big number. If we're going to 100, everybody, 75 is a very big number. Canada can't afford to lose that. And to make up that difference somewhere else is going to be incredibly tough and challenging. So, look, there's two things. First, I don't take anything from a seriousness perspective, and I know that the world leader has said this in terms of President Trump about Canada becoming a 51st state. That's you can't take over somebody that's bigger than you, right? But that's impossible. So I want to leave that to the side for a second, even though he mentioned that a lot in the presser today. The secondary part of this is, what does Carney have in his leveraging chip? Well, if you saw, Fiona, a report came out recently with 6 states, a lot of them in the Northeast, that rely on a lot of the Canadian provinces for trade, to meet with some of the provincial leaders and just talk about how they can circumvent and navigate some of the tariff impact that's going to happen with respect to how Canada does so much trade across the U.S. border. So that's already kind of undergoing, and you've noticed it start to happen a little bit with some states starting to reach out with, you know, their direct counterparts in some of the provinces to talk about these impacts. But the prime minister doesn't really have a lot of levers at his disposal that he can pull. Yes, of course, he's going to try to reach out to other countries and figure out, with respect to meeting with leaders in Canada from their sectors, hey, what are some things that you can rely on from other countries that we can't rely on from the U.S. perspective right now? I think everyone's kind of doing the wait and see thing. Let's take a 60, 90-day approach. Let's pause. Let's see if maybe somebody will come to the negotiating table, somebody will break. So far, we haven't seen that break. And this is part of the reason why, obviously, after him winning the election, he came over here. And this was the first stop, because that 75 number is huge. And he can't go back to Canada right now and tell business leaders, I don't have a solution for you, right? He's got to come back with some sort of solution that he can bring to them, and then they can figure it out.
Okay, well, Mike, speaking of these states or provinces kind of going off on their own a little bit, Carney, he's saying Canadians' view on becoming this 51st state, it's not going to change, it's not going to happen. But we have heard talk in the province of Alberta, right? The province, it might, or at least it's talking about holding a referendum to separate from Canada. Of course, this is all very preliminary. But do you think this type of sentiment could become more widespread?
I mean, that kind of sentiment happens everywhere. California has talked and Texas have talked about seceding from the U.S. Barcelona has talked about seceding from Spain. All of those states and provinces or regions are still part of their original countries, because once you drill down into it, it is a lot harder to break, and especially the fiscal break. Now California is probably the one that could actually do it. Will the talk resume up in Canada with respect to what's happening in Alberta and the little inclinations? I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because if you just look at the election results, right, a lot of people were very upset with Justin Trudeau, his mismanagement of COVID. There was obviously, we saw the protest that happened with the Ottawa truckers. There was a lot of talk of like the Labour Party could lose steam here and could not win this election upcoming. And then what happens? The tariffs happen, the impacts. Money talks, Fiona, and everyone in Canada, at least people that I have talked to up in Alberta and people that I know in Ottawa and Winnipeg and Vancouver, et cetera, for work that I've done business-wise, all of them have said the same thing. Money talks. And these tariffs have actually had an impact, and they've had a direct impact on different sectors that are pivotal to the Canadian economy. And this is part of the reason why Carney ran on some of this and the Labour Party was able to come back into power. So I think the talks will start to, at least, I don't know if anyone's taking them super duper serious as they should be, because the president of the United States is saying it. But I think the bigger thing, the thing that's superseding everything is, what do we do about tariffs? If we can navigate the tariff conversation and do it on our own, losing that 75 number that we just talked about before with our biggest trade partner here in North America, then how do we continue, as a country, and how do we figure this out? I don't think anybody up there in Canada is actually taking the 51st state conversation serious, even though what has been coming out and trickling out news-wise from Alberta.
Okay, so President Trump, he's saying that Carney is the candidate who hates him the least, and he won this election. And the president said he'd rather deal with a liberal party this time around up north rather than a conservative party. So what does this moment mean for Carney as a new prime minister? And what do you think, from everything we've seen just today, tells you about how he's going to handle this relationship with the U.S.?
Well, look, if anybody can solve this, and I hate to put this much pressure on him, Prime Minister, but it's Carney. I mean, Carney, look, is an economist. Like he understands the global markets, right? He's done this type of stuff not only in Canada, but overseas in the UK. So if anybody can figure out the impacts of what, first off, losing a trade partner, a valuable trade partner, and what that fiscal responsibility, let's say, for lack of a better term, will be to and impact his economy and his country, it's the prime minister in Carney that they've elected. Now, whether or not Trump has a better relationship with Trudeau like he did prior versus with Carney, that's yet to be seen. I don't know how much he's actually known Carney outside of maybe some business dealings here and there, but I think for Carney, and specifically why he got elected, and like I said, why the Labour Party was starting to lose steam until this tariffs, it was because this was his area of expertise. This was something that Canadians felt he was best suited and positioned to be a negotiator and be somebody that could either get the tariffs lowered down, get a new trade agreement in place, which, by the way, I want to echo this one more time. President Trump put the USMCA Act agreement together. So if we were being taken advantage of, he's the person that put the agreement together. So who was taking advantage of us? So if anybody can figure out and navigating these treacherous waters, and I hate using that word treacherous, Fiona, but it is treacherous for Canadian consumers, folks that are working in the Canadian economy right now that rely on exporting to America. As we just said before, it's such a large number. There's a lot of right now uncertainty, and that uncertainty trickles down in a secondary effect where people tighten up their purse strings and then they don't travel. Other industries and sectors are affected. So if anybody can figure this out and navigate this and be the negotiator, as you saw, very mild-mannered and somebody that comes to the table with ideas and can negotiate, it's the Prime Minister in Carney, and that's why he was elected up there in Canada.
Yeah, and he's going to be having a media appearance soon. Hopefully we'll have some new information coming out of that. Mike, Leon, thanks.
Thanks, Fiona.
All right, coming up, a law in Mississippi allows those harmed by exposure to pornography to sue the hosting websites. NTD spoke with an attorney from the American Family Association about the law's impact and significance. That and more when we come back.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. We'd never make a separate dinner. And never do that. We'd never let them sleep in our room. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris. Okay, well, I'm not at my desk right now.
As parents, we never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers.
Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free adult education centers near you.
When it comes to disasters and emergencies, it's not a matter of if, but when.
I'm relying on luck, but who knows if it'll be on my side.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Take control at ready.gov/olderadults.
Welcome back. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is on Capitol Hill today as Republicans work on advancing their budget. The president continues to work on trade deals, and the nation is quickly approaching its debt ceiling as well. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup.
For the first time since its confirmation hearings, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is back on Capitol Hill, this time answering questions about everything from tariffs to ongoing trade negotiations, Republicans' budget plans, the debt ceiling, and more, despite pressure from House Democrats about what they call the economic turmoil underway under the Trump administration. The secretary assured lawmakers that the U.S. is not in a recession and says that trade talks are going well, though China has not yet engaged.
I would think that perhaps as early as this week, we will be announcing trade deals with some of our largest trading partners. China, we have not engaged in negotiations with as of yet.
Now, one Democrat lawmaker, Glusen Kemp-Perez, expressed that she's in agreement that the trading system does need to be changed, asking how the administration plans to use tariffs to help grow wages for American workers.
Could you expand on how the proposed tariffs would ensure that there is upward pressure on wages?
After China entered the WTO was a large decrease in manufacturing jobs. So moving more workers from service work to manufacturing.
As for the administration's goal of saving tax dollars, the Treasury put forth a budget request cutting nearly $3 billion from the previous year's budget. The goal is to save money through things such as paperless processing, cracking down on fraudulent payments, and even thinking about how to make coins cheaper.
The nickel costs more than a nickel to produce, whether it's Social Security, veterans benefits, tax refunds, there's a substantial number of those are stolen.
Have you been able to claw back any improper payments for the taxpayer, reclaim those dollars?
Yes, we've clawed back tens of millions of dollars.
This is the first of 2 hearings. Tomorrow, the Treasury Secretary will be back on Capitol Hill. He'll be in the House Ways and Means Committee to answer more questions from lawmakers. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Dozens of pro-Palestine students are facing charges after protesting at the University of Washington. The group was celebrating the October 7th attacks by Hamas. The school says last night's actions created a dangerous environment. The Seattle-based university said in a statement that the protesters set 2 dumpsters on fire, endangering other people. About 30 students are now facing charges for trespassing, property destruction, and disorderly conduct. The group behind the protest is called Super UW. Its Facebook page says it's dedicated to equal rights and justice for the Palestinian people. Now, in a Monday statement, the group described the October 7th terrorist attacks as, quote, a heroic victory. The protesters tried to take over a new campus building, which was funded by Boeing. The group says it's against the aviation company's defense contracts and arms sales to Israel. The White House says Harvard University will no longer be eligible for government grants. Education Secretary Linda McMahon sent a letter to Harvard President Alan Garber yesterday evening. It said the university will not receive such funding unless it makes significant changes to its management. The letter cited low public confidence in higher education and Harvard's alleged failure to combat anti-Semitism on campus. Now, it also took issue with the virtually untaxed status of Harvard's significant financial endowment. President Trump on Friday threatened to go after Harvard's tax-exempt status, writing on social media that it's what they deserve. Earlier this year, the Department of Education sent Harvard a list of demands, including combating anti-Semitism on campus and eliminating DEI programs. The university was required to fulfill them or risk losing billions in federal funding. Harvard responded by saying it was not, quote, prepared to agree to demands that go beyond the lawful authority of this or any administration. With student loan defaults rising, the Trump administration is turning up the pressure on colleges. The Department of Education is threatening to withhold federal aid to colleges that have high levels of students in default on their student loans. Education Secretary McMahon sent a letter to colleges and universities yesterday that receive federal funding assistance. She urged them to reach out to all former students to remind them of their financial obligations. The letter goes on to say institutions could lose access to federal student aid if they are not proactive. McMahon says the Education Department plans to calculate rates of non-repayment for each institution and will publish the information on the Federal Aid Data Center later this month. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves recently signed into law a bill that allows persons harmed by child pornography and obscenity to sue websites hosting the material. Attorney Trey Dellinger, a senior fellow at the American Family Association, provides analysis of the new law's significance.
This is a pervasive problem that is really affecting people's health. Now the average age of exposure to online pornography is 12 years old. And you're seeing kids as young as 5 years old be exposed. Publication of this material has been a crime for many, many years, yet the problem has only gotten worse. So we needed additional tools, and that's where this bill comes in. And what this bill does is this bill creates an ability for private citizens who are harmed by this type of content, either because they're depicted in an obscene video or they're exposed to it and harmed by exposure. It gives them the ability to sue the websites that publish this material and to collect money damages against them. You may recall that decades ago, the problems and the health problems presented by tobacco we tried to regulate that through administrative agencies and through health regulations, and that never really got a handle on the problem. We really didn't curb the harmful use of tobacco products until we allowed private attorneys to sue the big tobacco companies for damages. And they got hundreds of millions of dollars of verdicts against them.
Dellinger says a number of studies have demonstrated that addiction to pornography is causing people to be unable to form healthy relationships when they become adults. Meanwhile, a study by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children found 70 million child exploitation videos. Dellinger is encouraging people to contact lawmakers and ask for laws in their states to protect children from such content. He's also urging parents to use available resources like the Internet Watch Foundation and Covenant Eyes to protect their children. A House committee has advanced a bill to permanently rename the body of water along the southeastern U.S. coast. Under this legislation, all federal laws, maps, regulations, and official records would be required to refer to it as the Gulf of America. President Trump signed an executive order on day one of his second term renaming the Gulf. That order is already in effect, and federal agencies have been instructed to use the new name. But putting it into law through Congress would make the change much harder to reverse under a future administration. With approval from the House Rules Committee, the bill now heads to the full House for a vote. The Trump administration is trying to eliminate Manhattan's congestion pricing program. The city of New York and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority are asking a federal judge to step in. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is threatening to withhold federal government approvals and funding if the city keeps the program going. In addition to the city and the MTA, New York State is seeking an injunction as well. New York launched its first in the nation program back in January. Under this plan, most passenger vehicles face a $9 toll during peak periods to enter Manhattan south of 60th Street. The city says it's an effort to cut traffic and raise funds to improve mass transit. And the Department of Transportation is planning to revamp the air traffic control system. Transportation Secretary Duffy says the DOT will announce a plan this Thursday that will transform air traffic control and remodel an outdated system. Duffy says the plan will address issues that have contributed to delays at Newark International Airport. He also addressed an incident in April in which controllers at the facility that coordinates traffic for Newark lost communications with the planes under their control. It led 5 controllers to take leave for trauma. It's compounded existing staffing shortages and equipment failures and contributed to frustrating hours-long delays for passengers. The Army has suspended helicopter flights into and around the Pentagon. This follows an incident last week involving a military helicopter flying too close to Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. The incident resulted in air traffic control aborting the landings of 2 commercial flights. The suspension will affect helicopter operations out of the 12th Aviation Battalion. That battalion is tasked with evacuating top political officials in cases of emergency. In late January, a Black Hawk helicopter collided midair with a commercial jet, killing all 67 people on board both aircraft. Coming up, we'll be discussing the Trump administration's latest initiative to pay illegal immigrants $1,000 to self-deport. And Russia and Ukraine swap hundreds of prisoners of war, but fighting still continues, even just days before Moscow wants to start a 3-day ceasefire. Stay tuned.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy 1, get 2 free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day, becoming a better version of myself, to be the better mirror for my son. I mean, he's just growing. He's becoming his own person. Man, first I saw him dance, bro, he brings the vibes, you know what I'm saying? He brings the party no matter what. He really a definition of like why he loves somebody. And I love him to the death of me.
Welcome back. The Department of Homeland Security has announced that illegal immigrants who use the CBP Home app to initiate self-deportation will receive a $1,000 bonus. Now, this is an interesting topic. We're now going to bring on Todd Bensman, Senior Fellow with the Center for Immigration Studies. Todd, thank you for joining us here today. Tell us, how unique do you find this approach be to removing these illegal immigrants?
Well, it's not that unique. It's been done in Europe for quite a few years. I believe the British government put together a incentive plan to have Afghan illegal migrants who slipped into the country self-declare and then be paid about 1,200 euros on the tarmac back in Kabul. This was still during the war years, when Kabul was relatively secure. It's a plan that I don't know how well it worked over there. I do remember when they rolled it out, we probably borrowed it from the Europeans, but it makes good sense. If you take our money, you get the money plus an opportunity to not be banned from a legal entry at some point. And if we have to come and get you, then we might prosecute you, put a ban on you ever coming back legally, and you're not going to get the money. So it's kind of an interesting kind of incentivizing plan. It's worth a try.
Well, could this system be abused in any way, or do you see any sort of challenges that it could face?
Not really. Just if people are applying for this stipend on the CBP app that has been repurposed from bringing people in to enabling people to go home and get this stipend. I mean, really, I don't see any legal issues at all. It's all voluntary. Nobody's being forced to do it. The money is going to be considerably less than if we have to send you home on a $7,000 flight, with all the detention and all that. I think it's a good idea. Let's try it.
Well, then, Todd, do you think this a $1,000 figure, would that be enough for those here in the U.S. illegally to want to declare themselves and then return to their home country? Because, I mean, some of these individuals, they can make that amount of money in a month if they work multiple jobs.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that they could play around with the amounts. Anything really south of what it would cost the United States government to detain, and then fly people home and go through, court hearings and all the rest of that, is a good thing. If it's less, even if it's twice $1,000, if it's $2,000 or $3,000, it's still a pretty good deal for the U.S. taxpayer.
So you're saying that in the end, this is a financially sustainable way to deport illegal immigrants?
Absolutely. It's the most economical way to have people, to reduce the population of illegally present people in the United States, rather than to have to go hunt them down, set up on them, find them, detain them, and all of that. They might want to go home, and especially if they know they're going to be deported anyway. And that's a key thing. You have to be having actual deportations backing up your words. If there is a real threat of deportation, a pretty high threat that we're going to get you at some point, this then becomes a pretty appealing offer.
Okay, then I have a specific question here, Todd. We see a lot of these illegal immigrants, they come in with the help of these coyotes, right? And then they have to pay these coyotes off. But if they self-deport and they still haven't paid them off and they can't earn enough back at home to pay those coyotes off, what happens then?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure. I know that does happen, but I'm not sure how widespread it is, especially for people from 150 different countries that came in here. They tend to pay all that in advance. Central Americans, I have met some that did make an arrangement like that, but they're probably at risk. Their families might be at risk at home. So the segment of the population that could do this might not want to do it if it puts their relatives back in the home country at risk. But also some of these debts are already paid off too.
All right, then if this novel approach, it ends up being successful. I mean, it's not super novel, as you mentioned there, but do you think it could become even more widespread? Could it spread beyond a few countries in the EU and the US, and other countries might adopt it as well?
Sure. I think a lot of eyes will be on this to see if it works, and if they actually roll it out and they're actually removing people and making the payments, and the numbers are sufficient, why not? Everybody should do it. I just don't know how the Europeans fared on their incentive self-deportation program. But if the money's good enough and there's a big enough threat that you are going to be deported, I don't see why it wouldn't be pretty successful. Any burden removed from ICE is a big plus for the American people and for those agencies.
All right, so before we go here, what else are you expecting from the DHS in the coming weeks and months?
Well, I think that we should see the quote unquote big beautiful bill pass, the finance bill, the budget bill, that could bring as much as $170 billion into DHS for the mass deportation program. That's coming up. That's right on the immediate horizon. And once that money starts to flow through the veins and the capillaries of the system, then you should start to see a significant expansion of the deportation numbers, and to target people beyond just criminal aliens, but to housekeepers and lawn mowers and gardeners and everybody else who is here illegally. And I think you're going to see some controversy surrounding that. You'll see more detention centers being built, more aircraft coming in for this, and a lot more state and local police get involved at the local level in immigrant detentions.
All right, Todd Bensman, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And today, Israel says that its military hit Yemen's main airport. The strikes in the capital mark the latest exchange between Israel and Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis. Israel had earlier warned people to leave the area around Sana'a International Airport. Yesterday, Israeli forces carried out airstrikes at a port in Yemen. Tel Aviv said the strikes were in response to a Houthi missile landing near Israel's main air hub on Sunday. Tensions have been rising between Israel and the Houthis amid the ongoing war in the Gaza Strip against the Hamas terror group. The Supreme Court today allows the Trump administration to enforce their ban on transgender people in the military while they appeal a lower court's ruling. The administration's policy will, at least for now, disqualify transgender people from military service. In President Trump's executive order, he states the sexual identity of transgender service members, quote, conflicts with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle, even in one's personal life. The three liberal justices, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson, said they would have denied the application without further explanation. The pause will remain in place until after the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rules, and possibly longer if the Supreme Court decides to conduct a full review of the case. Over to Germany, the country's conservative leader is elected as chancellor after initially falling short in a first round of voting. What was meant to be a formality has turned into a shocking defeat for the incoming coalition government. Here's NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson from London.
Germany's conservative leader Friedrich Merz was elected chancellor by parliament in a second round of voting. That was after an unprecedented defeat on the first attempt, getting his coalition government off to a weak start. Here Merz being sworn in as the next German chancellor.
I swear that I will devote my power to serve the benefit of the German people, increase its interests, protect it from harm, keep and defend the Constitution and the laws of the country, fulfill my duties with diligence and uphold justice for all.
In the first round of voting, Merz had secured just 310 votes, 6 short of an absolute majority in the 630-seat Bundestag. That means 18 coalition lawmakers failed to back him. No chancellor candidate has lost a Bundestag vote since democracy was restored to Germany in 1949. Given that it was a secret ballot, it's unknown who dissented. Whether from the centre-left Social Democrats or SPD, who he formed a coalition with, or conservatives in his own party, the Christian Democratic Union, or CDU. Merz's CDU won 22.5% of the votes in the February general election, but fell short of a majority. The right-wing Alternative for Germany, or AfD, came a close second at 22.8%. But Merz has vowed never to govern with the AfD. After lengthy negotiations, the CDU made an agreement with the SPD to form a coalition government. Lawmakers were widely expected to back Merz as chancellor in what was considered a formality vote. AfD leader Alice Weidel told the Epoch Times that the result was a sign of instability within the CDU-SPD coalition. She also called for new elections, saying voters want a centre-right government. The CDU-SPD coalition deal has mapped out plans to revive growth, such as reducing a corporate tax and lowering energy prices. It also vows strong support for Ukraine and higher military spending. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Russia and Ukraine successfully swapped hundreds of prisoners of war today, but fighting continues. Ukraine reportedly targets various Russian areas with drones. Now, this is just days before Moscow wants to start a 3-day ceasefire, as China's Xi Jinping is set to visit Russia.
Ukraine publishing this footage on Tuesday, showing over 200 prisoners of war released from Russia. And Kyiv also released over 200 of Moscow's captured soldiers in exchange. The deal was mediated by the United Arab Emirates, but the fighting doesn't stop. Video shows a missile fragment stuck in a residential building in Moscow on Tuesday. Russia says airports in Moscow briefly paused operations after a swarm of Ukrainian drones targeted the Russian capital. Kyiv reportedly also targeted Russia's Kursk region, striking an electricity substation. Officials say the attack injured 2 residents and caused power outages. Russian President Vladimir Putin previously announced pausing the fighting from Thursday to Sunday. That's to mark the 80th anniversary since the end of World War II. The Kremlin now doubles down on its request after Tuesday's attacks.
All fire will cease, but if Kyiv tries to strike our positions or facilities, we will immediately give an adequate response.
International leaders such as China's Xi Jinping are set to visit Russia this week. It's not clear if Putin is requesting the truce on behalf of the Chinese leader to protect him. Ukraine has so far appeared to be against such a short truce. Kyiv says it's ready to sign up to a ceasefire that would last for at least 30 days. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
In France, government tax hikes threaten the survival of small businesses. Business owners are protesting, warning the changes will destroy small-town economies. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
According to official figures, nearly 18,000 French enterprises faced bankruptcy over the past month. That's a 28% surge compared to last year, putting 72,000 jobs at risk. The French government is looking for savings in its 2025 budget plan, but recent tax increases are hitting businesses hard, pushing many small and medium enterprises toward bankruptcy. One controversial measure, though currently suspended, could force up to 250,000 self-employed workers to start charging VAT, raising service costs by 20%. Business owners, fearing for their future, organized a protest near the Ministry of Economy in Paris on Tuesday.
I look my salary to drop off from $1,700 to $1,200. It's not possible. You can't make a living like that. I've got a family. I've got 3 children. I've got loans to pay. I can't do it.
A member of parliament from President Macron's party urged the government to overturn the tax.
The budget law passed without a full parliamentary vote, so some measures weren't properly examined. The political turmoil made debate difficult. We're still a democracy, of course, but now we're seeing that some of these decisions might be very bad for the people.
Several business owners emphasized the vital role of small enterprises in rural communities and warned of a wider collapse.
I run a guest house in a small village in Normandy. When people stay here, they go to the restaurant next door, the wine shop, the bakery. If I shut down, it hurts everyone.
7 small shops opened in my town in southern France. 5 of them are micro businesses. If taxes go up, they'll shut down and we'll be left with an empty town center. People need to realize what's at stake. Where will they shop if everyone closes?
The new tax increases are set to take effect in September 2025. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
When we come back, over in Australia, a brass band recruits talent from an elementary school. The young musicians represent the next generation for the local ensemble. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned to get a free month of home warranty protection. Tired of searching for contractors when your home appliances and systems break down, only to leave you stuck with a huge repair bill and shoddy repairs? Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and appliance breakdowns could cost thousands.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they could do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way.
I would recommend anyone who is listening to this to call Choice Home Warranty. It eliminates anxiety, frustration, and it saves you money.
Don't let an appliance or home system break the bank, leaving you stressed. Call Choice Home Warranty before that happens and get your first month free. Plus, call in the next 5 minutes and we'll give you free limited roof leak coverage. That's a $70 value, free. Just call now.
No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. I trust Choice Home Warranty with my home, and you should too.
Year after year, Choice Home Warranty is recognized as the nation's top home warranty and has thousands of 5-star reviews from real homeowners. Experience real budget protection and call Choice Home Warranty now.
Stop throwing money down the toilet chasing contractors. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Don't wait another minute. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. That's over $100 in savings. This offer won't last long. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-216-9114, 800-216-9114.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Thanks for staying with us. President Donald Trump is declaring national holidays in order to honor America's victories in World War I and World War II. The president took to his Truth Social platform to announce the new dates. Trump posted in part, quote, "We won 2 world wars, but we never took credit for it. Everyone else does." The president also added, quote, "The only country that doesn't celebrate is the United States of America, and the victory was only accomplished because of us." November 11th will celebrate the day an armistice was signed that ended World War I. America's victory in World War II will be celebrated on May 8th. Trump also added that these holidays will remain regular business days. The president posted, quote, "We were workers then, and we are workers now." With the majority of its members in their 70s, a brass band in northern Tasmania is recruiting talent from an elementary school. Today, the young musicians are a critical part of the group. Here's NTD's Andrew Thomas with that story on this new generation.
Practice, practice, practice. This seasoned band is expanding its ranks. Band leader Mary Parcell is scouting for younger talent.
It's going to be feasible, I don't think so. So we need the next generation coming through.
Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Up next, China is reportedly using a spy base in Cuba to conduct surveillance on U.S. activities in the air, in space, and at sea as well. U.S. lawmakers are calling this an alarming threat. We'll be right back.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. So I teased him the other day and I said, "How come you never say that to me?" And he said, "You're too old now." Now that he's a grandfather, he says, "I love you" to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the material things, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious minute or moment.